To everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
Rachel Zegler once seemed like Hollywood's new golden star. After her breakout performance in West Side Story, critics praised her as a rare talent with both singing and acting skills. Everyone believed she was on the path to becoming one of the industry's biggest names. But then came her role in the live-action remake of Snow White, and with it, a whirlwind of controversy that nobody saw coming.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Was terrified of it, never revisited Snow White again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 17 years. Asked a guy in the movie, Andrew Burnett. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. With a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
They've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now. They flew an executive, one of the producers, out to go visit personally with Rachel Zegler to say, could you please take that down? And she wouldn't. And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White and the prince and young love and women who want to get married.
This controversy didn't appear from thin air. It started small, a few comments in interviews, some raised eyebrows among fans, and kept growing until the internet exploded with talk of boycotts and hate messages. In a matter of months, Rachel's promising future became overshadowed by negative headlines, low ticket sales, and reports of tension on set. Now, many are asking how she went from celebrated newcomer to a polarizing figure in record time.
I did some research into how this movie performed, and it's not looking good. I haven't seen a movie with ratings like this in a very long time. Keep in mind that Disney spent about like $250 million on this movie, and when the film came out, they didn't even make half of that back. Typically with movies, you want to make 3 times the budget, but it looks like at this rate, they might not even be able to break even.
For most people, catching Steven Spielberg's attention is a once-in-a-lifetime dream. Rachel Zegler actually lived that dream. She became the lead in West Side Story, a role that thrust her onto the world stage practically overnight. Critics admired her vocal talent and presence, calling her a star who could carry old Hollywood magic into the modern era. Fans were excited too. After the film's release, social media was filled with clips of her singing, screenshots of her interviews, and countless posts labeling her the next big thing. Spielberg spoke about her with glowing praise. It seemed certain that other high-profile directors would soon be lining up to cast her in leading roles. When Disney chose her to play the classic Princess Snow White, it felt like a natural step forward. She was seen as someone who could blend the sweetness of the original character with her own strong voice. Many assumed this remake would capture the spirit of the 1937 animated film while offering a fresh, modern spin. But nobody knew the trouble that lay ahead.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Fans love Snow White for good reason. It was Disney's first full-length animated movie, and it set the stage for decades of fairy tale magic. Because it's so iconic, people feel protective of it. That's why eyebrows went up when Rachel, in interviews, described the 1937 film as weird and obviously outdated. She said the plot felt off and implied that Snow White was too dependent on a prince. Some people tried to see these comments as a modern perspective, praising her for wanting a stronger, more independent princess. But many fans felt Rachel was being dismissive. They asked, could she have expressed the same ideas without insulting the original? It wasn't just that she wanted to update the story, it was the tone of her remarks. Suddenly, blog posts and social media accounts lit up with criticism. A lot of people interpreted her attitude as disrespectful. Instead of a thoughtful update to a classic, they felt she was mocking something they'd loved since childhood. The debate escalated quickly as short clips of her interviews made the rounds online. Disney fans, who are often loyal and vocal, warned that they might skip the movie altogether if this new version threw too much shade at the original. Ordinarily, when a Disney film faces negative buzz, the studio's marketing team steps in to steer the conversation back on track. They might schedule extra interviews or release a heartwarming behind-the-scenes video that reassures fans about the project's true intentions. But as Snow White inched closer to release, there was an unusual lack of reassurance. Rachel kept giving interviews where she repeated her issues with the original film. She emphasized that her character wasn't waiting around for a prince, that the romance angle was outdated, and that the new version would focus on leadership instead of love. While that might sound empowering, her constant mention of how flawed the 1937 film was only made some fans angrier. Rumors surfaced that early test screenings weren't receiving great responses. People talked about possible script rewrites or reshoots. Merchandise tie-ins didn't cause the usual excitement, and it seemed brand partners were unsure how to market a movie that was generating more controversy than wonder. Despite all this, some held out hope that the final film would surprise everyone, and that the uproar online was merely loud but small in number. Maybe the drama would fade once families actually saw the movie. Everything came to a head when Rachel posted a passionate video from what looked like her bedroom. She confessed she was tired of the ongoing hate, the cruel messages, and the people who mocked her intentions for Snow White. Her emotions shifted between near tears and firm defiance. She insisted that no matter what people said, audiences would keep lining up to see her work. If she hoped this vulnerable moment would earn sympathy, the exact opposite happened. Viewers took her statements as self-centered, believing she was comparing herself to famous artworks that remain popular despite imperfections. Memes and reaction videos multiplied instantly. Some TikTokers made comedic sketches poking fun at her seriousness, while others argued she was out of touch with why people were really upset. Clips from the meltdown were then juxtaposed with older interview snippets where she laughed off the importance of the prince or dismissed the 1937 version as creepy. That side-by-side view created a damaging narrative that Rachel was arrogant, dismissive of Disney heritage, and offended when fans called her out. At this point, any chance of spinning the situation in her favor grew slim. The big question was whether general audiences, beyond the online debates, would still go to the theater for a brand new Disney film. The answer arrived in the form of shockingly low ticket sales. Snow White opened at just $45 million domestically, a devastating figure for a movie of its scale. By comparison, the recent live-action The Little Mermaid, which had faced its own controversies, debuted at nearly $100 million. This wasn't how Disney planned it. The marketing had banked on a mix of nostalgia and Rachel's star power to drive families to theaters. But word spread quickly about the film's underwhelming changes, and the backlash against its lead star seemed to deepen. Before long, major theater chains moved Snow White off their largest screens, giving those prime showtimes to other films. Some theaters dropped it entirely after the first or second week. Industry insiders were stunned. They called it one of Disney's biggest disappointments in recent memory. Even though the movie was meant to honor the studio's legacy, the audience clearly felt a mismatch between the classic and this new take. People who might have rushed out to watch any Disney release were now taking a pass, rattled by the negative buzz around Rachel's interviews and the film itself. During award season events and press tours, Rachel shared the spotlight with Gal Gadot, who played the evil queen. Observers quickly noticed an awkward distance between the two. They stood side by side on red carpets, but rarely interacted. Body language experts online noted the tension, and gossip sites suggested Gal was doing just enough promotion to fulfill her contract without associating too closely with Rachel. In public interviews, Gal Gadot maintained her usual grace, but she also seemed careful not to be overly supportive of the project. She kept her statements about the film short and professional. Fans speculated that behind the scenes, Gal might have wanted to avoid any fallout from Rachel's controversies. Meanwhile, Rachel stood front and center in the blame for the film's poor performance, receiving little apparent backup from her co-star. By the time they appeared at the Oscars together for a brief segment, it was obvious to onlookers that there was no warm camaraderie. If any friendship had existed during production, it seemed overshadowed by the avalanche of bad press. People said the contrast between Gal's relatively smooth career and Rachel's rough patch was impossible to ignore. Hollywood can be brutal when a star's reputation takes a dive. The moment Snow White bombed, people whispered that Rachel's own words and public persona were the main culprits. Instead of rallying around her, many industry figures distanced themselves. Directors and producers who once spoke highly of her remained silent. Other rising actors stopped tagging her or interacting on social media. Casting rumors dried up. Some insiders said Rachel's name was quietly removed from shortlists for major roles. Brands that usually work with Disney stars hesitated to tie themselves to someone carrying so much negative buzz. She was viewed as risky, and marketing experts asked if general audiences would see her as unappealing, given how her meltdown video and interview clips had spread across the internet. It's a harsh turn for someone who, not too long ago, seemed unstoppable. But Hollywood often operates on the principle that a star is only as good as their last success. When a high-profile film flops, especially one that cost millions, studios look for the cause. Many concluded that the film's problems weren't just about the script, they were also about its lead actor's public image. Though the situation looks dire, Hollywood history is filled with stories of public figures who staged huge comebacks. The key factors are usually humility, growth, and a strong new role that lets people see the performer in a new light. Fans can forgive a lot if they sense sincerity and a genuine apology where needed. Rachel, however, hasn't fully apologized for her cutting remarks about the 1937 film. She sometimes says she was misunderstood or taken out of context. So far, that hasn't softened the tension. Some say she might benefit from stepping away from major productions for a while, instead taking on smaller, more serious roles that show she can reinvent herself. Others suggest philanthropic or humanitarian work could rebuild her reputation, if done genuinely. But none of that works if viewers feel she isn't truly sorry about insulting a cherished Disney classic. Audiences today quickly spot when a celebrity's PR moves seem phony. If Rachel continues to appear angry or defensive, it could be even harder for her to win back public favor. Rachel's story reveals how easily a star can fall if they alienate a core fan base. Disney fans especially cherish the magic and nostalgia of the original films. Many of them grew up with Snow White, saw it on VHS or DVD as children, and continued the tradition with their own kids. So, for Rachel to call the original weird and to laugh about its key romantic elements felt personal to these fans. A modern, feminist Snow White can definitely succeed if the tone is respectful, but many people viewed Rachel's stance as belittling, rather than praising the original while still updating its themes. That's a big reason they stayed away from theaters. To them, she seemed to be dismissing something precious. Others in the general audience were turned off by her meltdown video, seeing it as proof that she held herself above critique. And then there's the matter of timing. Audiences nowadays share their opinions instantly and have more influence on a movie's reputation than ever before. A single viral clip can dominate social media, and once the negative impression sets in, it's difficult to overturn. For Rachel, it's a cautionary tale. In today's landscape, actors need to balance honesty with respect for the legacy they're handling. Rachel's sudden fall from grace highlights just how fragile stardom can be. One year, you're the darling of the biggest director in Hollywood, winning awards and captivating audiences. The next, you're at the center of a massive public backlash, with your movie flopping and your future projects in question. In fairness to her, many of the modern updates to old fairy tales are designed to empower female characters. Yet the way she expressed her opinions overshadowed the positive elements. Her constant critiques of the original movie felt disrespectful, and people who loved that old classic responded by tuning her out completely. Disney's massive marketing power couldn't fix the situation once negative word of mouth took hold. The meltdown video, combined with earlier interview footage, formed a relentless cycle of memes and harsh commentary. In an internet age, no publicity plan is strong enough if an actor repeatedly alienates fans.